As soon as the sun dips below the horizon, the forest comes alive with all kinds of creepy crawlies, and as darkness envelops the tall trees, strange noises start echoing through the woods. In the quiet of the night, every little sound seems to be amplified. You're surrounded by things that go bump in the night, and some of them might even be human. In this video, we are going to take a look at a terrifying camping discovery made by a young man who spent a night alone in the woods. There have been many urban legends about forests, and most people avoid going into one alone after dark. After watching this video, you will never go into a forest alone again. Without further ado, let's get started. A young man named Jordan decided to spend a night alone in a haunted forest near his home. He wanted to test his limits and see if he could survive the night without losing his mind. He packed some supplies, including a knife, a flashlight, and a tent, and headed into the woods. As the sun began to set, Jordan started to feel a sense of dread wash over him. The forest was dark and eerie, and he could hear all sorts of strange noises around him. He set up his tent and tried to make himself comfortable, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Throughout the night, Jordan heard strange sounds outside of his tent. He would hear footsteps, whispers, and what sounded like screams in the distance. He also felt the tent move, as if something heavy had been placed on top of it. Jordan was terrified. He didn't know what was out there, and he was afraid to find out. But then something happened that made Jordan's blood run cold. He started hearing voices outside of his tent. At first, they were faint, and he couldn't make out the words they were saying. But as the night wore on, the voices grew louder and more distinct. They were talking about him, and he could hear them laughing and making fun of him. Jordan was paralyzed with fear. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to run away, but he was too scared to leave the safety of his tent. He stayed in the tent all night long, hugging his knees to his chest and trying to make himself small. He didn't sleep at all, and he didn't eat any of the food he had brought with him. He was too scared to move. When the first rays of sunlight finally started to peek through the trees, Jordan's terror began to subside. He slowly started to calm down, and he unzipped the tent to see what was out there. He was relieved to see that there was nothing there. The forest looked peaceful and serene, and he couldn't believe that the previous night as events had really happened. Shaking with fear, Jordan ran out of the woods and didn't stop until he got home. Once he was safe in his own bed, he started to think about what had happened to him. He couldn't explain the voices he had heard or the feeling that he had been watched. He decided that he would never go camping alone again, and that he would never enter a forest at night ever again. Now here's the thing. This is not a story that happened only once. It actually happened twice. Yes, you heard that right. Our protagonist survived 2 nights in a haunted forest, and both times he had a horrifying experience. Let's find out what happened. The second time Jordan went camping, he decided to try a new spot. He drove further into the woods and found a clearing where he set up his tent. He did his best to ignore the eerie feeling he had and tried to relax. But as soon as the sun went down, the nightmare began again. He started hearing footsteps near his tent, and he could feel the ground shake, as if something heavy was being dragged towards him. Then he heard whispers in his ear, but when he turned his head, there was no one there. He tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination, but he knew deep down that there was something out there. It continued throughout the night, and Jordan tried to distract himself by telling jokes to whoever was out there. But the entity only seemed to get angrier, and the voices became louder and more menacing. He could feel the tent shaking with every step the creature took outside the tent. At one point, he could swear that the tree branches outside the tent were scraping against it as if the creature was trying to climb inside. But when Jordan unzipped the tent to look, there was nothing there. He decided to stay up all night and wait for the sun to rise instead of trying to sleep. As the first light of dawn touched the trees, the noise outside the tent slowly came to a halt. Jordan cautiously unzipped the tent and stepped out. He looked around, but saw nothing. The forest appeared peaceful and serene, but Jordan knew that the tranquility was deceptive. He quickly packed up his things and fled the campsite. He didn't want to stay there another minute longer than he had to. Back at home, Jordan couldn't stop thinking about his terrifying experience. He couldn't understand why he was being targeted or what the entity wanted from him. He tried to dismiss it as a figment of his imagination, but the vividness of the experience made that impossible. He had felt the ground shake beneath him. He had heard the whispers and footsteps, and he had seen the shadows move outside his tent. Determined to uncover the truth, Jordan returned to the forest. He wanted to confront whatever was out there and put an end to the torment once and for all. But as he ventured deeper into the woods, a sense of foreboding washed over him. The trees seemed to close in around him, and the sunlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy above. He could feel the presence watching him, waiting for him to make a move. Just as he reached the clearing where he had pitched his tent, he heard a twig snap behind him. He whirled around, his heart pounding in his chest, but saw nothing. Yet the feeling of dread that had been clinging to him intensified. He turned back to his campsite, but now it was gone. The tent lay in ruins on the ground, shredded as if by a giant's teeth. Jordan's blood ran cold as he realized the tent hadn't been destroyed by animals. Something big, strong, and mean had been there, and now it was gone. He could feel the presence closing in on him, and he knew he had to escape before it was too late. He turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush, not daring to look back. The forest seemed to come alive with menace, and Jordan could feel the eyes of the entity boring into his back, urging him to run faster. He didn't dare slow down, he didn't dare look back, and he didn't dare speak. He just kept running, pushing himself beyond his limits. As he stumbled through the woods, he could hear the heavy footsteps pounding the ground behind him. The sound of ripping branches echoed through the trees, and Jordan could feel the forest itself trembling with the entity's rage. Finally, after what felt like hours, Jordan burst out of the trees and collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. He lay there, his body shaking, his heart pounding in his chest, and he knew that he had escaped, but he was not free. The entity had left its mark on him, and he would never be the same again. He would never forget the feeling of dread that had clung to him as he ventured into the forest, the menacing whispers that had echoed in his ears, or the heavy footsteps that had pounded the ground behind him. He had faced his fears and survived, but the scars of that experience would remain with him forever. And Jordan knew that he would never enter a forest alone again. The forest had claimed him, and he would never be free. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss any more amazing content. We've got lots of videos coming your way, so stick around for more spine-chilling tales and captivating stories. Until next time, happy camping.